Hey everybody, it's Gary Wilson from Great Lakes Now. We're in Chicago today and I'm talking with Peter Annin. Peter is the author of Great Lakes Water Wars. And if you're saying, I think I've heard of that book before, you probably have because this is the sequel. A lot has happened. Peter, welcome to Great Lakes Now.
Thank you, Gary.
Good to have you. Peter, with the Great Lakes Compact in place since 2008, 10 years now, that was supposed to protect the region from diversions of Great Lakes water. Why the need to do the sequel to your book from the 2006 version, Great Lakes Water Wars? Shouldn't those water wars have subsided with the compact?
Well, it's a fair question and a fair assumption. But the book actually, the first edition of the book came out before the compact was adopted. They had a piece of paper in 2005, and the book was intentionally published in 2006 to help edify the general public and the debate as the compact moved through the 8 Great Lakes legislatures and then on to Congress, ultimately to be signed by President Bush. So the story of how the compact got adopted, and then the story about the first few test cases of the compact, the water diversion in New Berlin, Wisconsin, which I call the forgotten diversion, and then of course the very celebrated controversial water diversion in Waukesha. That story has changed quite a bit since the first book came out, and then there's been a lot going on with the Chicago diversion during that time period as well. So about half the book is brand new material.
It's interesting that you would refer to New Berlin as the forgotten diversion. I spent a lot of time on this, and I pretty much had forgotten about it. This is a significant work with a wealth of history, access to insider thinking in water law and policy. What's the best way for the average reader to approach the book? You know, someone who is not necessarily familiar with the nuances of water law and policy and straddling in counties and all that terminology.
Yeah, I mean, the water is an incredibly complex topic, just at face value. Secondly, water is an incredibly emotional topic here in the Great Lakes region and really everywhere. And it's important for citizens to embrace some of those complexities in order to understand the emotions behind the topic. And this book was not written for the experts. This book was written for the average citizen and try to break down some of those complexities, include fly-on-the-wall kinds of reporting that make the narrative more interesting for the non-technical reader. And so hopefully, I've succeeded in breaking down some of those complexities and explain the nuances in a way that's interesting and engaging that can help people access this really important topic that is so emotional here in the Great Lakes region.
You're just starting a tour, but what kind of feedback have you been getting from not the environmental groups or the business groups, but from average citizens?
Yeah, I mean, average citizens really appreciate the Great Lakes Compact. They understand the general gist behind it for the most part, but they don't really understand it in many cases, especially not the nuances and where the rubber meets the road on some of these big controversies. And so there's actually been a surprising amount of interest. Hundreds of people have come out already to my book talks, throughout the Great Lakes region just in the last few days. And the audiences have been intensely engaged. I mean, just drawn to the topic and to the conversation. And they brought extraordinarily, perceptive questions during the Q&A afterwards. So again, this is just one of those really intense issues here in the Great Lakes region. As you know from your own reporting, that there's just a lot of interest among, a bipartisan interest here in the Great Lakes region about ensuring that the policies here are sustainable for multiple generations into the future.
With that in mind, what are one or two things that you would, a lot of information in the book, what are just a couple of things that you would hope the reader would take away?
Yeah, I think that it's important to realize that the primary goal of the compact was to ban long-range, large-scale diversions that would take water outside the Great Lakes Basin. And the compact has been resoundingly successful in that goal. And the controversies that we've been seeing in recent years have really been sort of around the edges of the Great Lakes Compact and around the edges of the Great Lakes Basin. But that the core of the compact, holding at bay potential threats to the water from far-flung areas that are water stressed or otherwise in need of water, that's been resoundingly successful in the Great Lakes Compact. And despite all the regional controversy, the document has been a big success.
The book is Great Lakes Water Wars. That's Peter Annin. Peter, thank you.
You're welcome, Gary. Thanks.
For Great Lakes Now, I'm Gary Wilson.